The Texans have a new offensive coordinator. It's not Handsome Cliff. It's not Cliff Kingsbury, who they reportedly spoke to on Friday. They end up hiring Bobby Slowik, who comes from the San Francisco 49ers. He was Demeco Ryans' co-quality control coach when they first got into the Niners organization together back in 2017. Slowik, most recently, was the pass game coordinator under Shanahan in San Francisco. So instead of an experienced guy, you bring in someone who's never been a play caller before to be the OC here for Demeco Ryans.
Yeah, Ugly Bobby's going to have an opportunity here to call plays.
You're calling him ugly?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go Handsome Cliff, we'll go Ugly Bobby. I don't know if that's a Bobby Slowik approved nickname, but we'll go Ugly Bobby.
I'm going to guess he doesn't want to be called Ugly Bobby.
Well, he lost to Handsome Cliff, so he's Ugly Bobby, I guess.
There's no in between? Either handsome or ugly?
I would say
moderately attractive Bobby Slowik.
Slowik looks a lot younger than he actually is, just looking at pictures of the guy. He's
Okay.
35 years old. He looks like he's like in his early 20s.
Carded when he buys alcohol, Bobby Slowik
100% carded.
is now the offensive coordinator. This was a likely outcome, even with the Cliff Kingsbury interview. And I do wonder if just the bar that Slowik had set from a familiarity with Demeco Ryans standpoint, an understanding of what Bobby Slowik is from Demeco Ryans, and just some of the comfort that Demeco Ryans inherently is going to have with a guy that he has coached with before. I wonder if Slowik, in his interview with this organization, set the bar so high that even Cliff Kingsbury, with a really solid resume, couldn't get past it. And you look at some of the ways that this staff has started to fill out in the past little while. I don't know if that would have been the same with Cliff Kingsbury, but this is comfort, and it's exciting because it comes from a style of offense and a tree of offense that is one of the most successful styles of offense in the National Football League. And the young play caller is a thing in the NFL right now. And at 35 years old, 36 by the time the season gets here, Bobby Slowik's going to be a 36-year-old play caller in the National Football League for the Houston Texans.
I hope he uses your nickname as motivation.
Ugly Bobby.
Moderately attractive Bobby.
Ugly Bobby.
Definitely gets carded when he buys beer Bobby.
For football and for picking up women in this life. I don't know if he's married or not.
I don't know either.
If he's not, I hope he uses that as motivation. You guys ever seen The Mandalorian before?
Yeah, the Star Wars TV show?
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen it?
I've seen a couple of episodes.
Okay.
There's no way you've seen a couple episodes.
Promise.
Random episodes, or you started from season 1?
Random episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just at people's houses and they were watching it, so I watched it.
Sure, that show makes a lot of sense to you.
I don't like where this is going, but I'll let you finish this analogy.
There's one line that I heard in multiple episodes, so I'm here to assume that it's a big part of that program. This is the way. This is the way that the NFL is going. Young offensive guys and hiring from the Shanahan/McVay tree. That's what the Texans did. This is a copycat league. A lot of people have been poaching from those trees in recent years, and most teams that have tried it have had success. Now, a lot of them are for head coaching jobs. You look at Mike McDaniel and Kevin O'Connell and Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur. Those guys were in those trees, and they got head coaching gigs, and they've had a lot of success where they are right now. But you see it some with offensive coordinators as well. This is what the NFL is about, and a lot of teams are having success doing what the Texans are trying to do here. Do I know what a Bobby Slowik offense is? No, none of us do. There's never been one. He's never called plays. But we're hoping that this guy has been molded by Shanahan and will do something close to Kyle Shanahan. And you talk about that comfort level. These guys both got to San Fran at the same time. And they both started as defensive quality control coaches. Reason to believe these dudes have been friends for a long, long time. And they've bounced ideas off of each other for a number of years out there by the Bay. It's a comfort level, and it's a hopeful hire that Bobby Slowik has learned a lot from the guy I think is the best offensive mind in the sport, in Kyle Shanahan.
I really like Bobby Slowik's history as a candidate as well. And you mentioned coaching offense under Kyle Shanahan the past couple of years. Got his start for Kyle Shanahan's dad, Mike Shanahan, in the film room. Okay? So got to start in the film room way back in 2010, and then ultimately coaches defense in Washington and initially in San Francisco. Well, that makes sense. Bobby's dad was and still is a defensive coach. He was a defensive coordinator in the league a bunch of different times for a bunch of teams, and now coaches in the Canadian Football League. So it made sense that Slowik was going to enter the NFL and coach defense. And then he gets to San Francisco, and you mentioned it, BK, one of the best offensive minds in football is like, why don't you coach offense? Bobby Slowik's like, okay. And then we believed if he'd stuck around in San Francisco, he would have gotten saddled with that offensive coordinator title. And to think to be the offensive coordinator under Kyle Shanahan, that's a pretty solid opportunity, and that means that one of the best offensive minds in football believes in you. Well, now he's the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, and unlike in San Francisco, he's going to get to call the plays. And I do wonder if just the Shanahan system, the familiarity with that, and the style of offense that Bobby Slowik's going to bring to the table was something that was just more desirable and more comfortable to Demeco Ryans than what Cliff Kingsbury is going to bring to the table. Kingsbury, a little bit more pass forward. Shanahan, a little bit more run oriented. Not to say that they can't throw the ball. Obviously, they can. They have success throwing the ball, but a little bit more run oriented to get things going and to get things started. Kingsbury had some issues at different times running the football in his career as an offense coordinator, as a play caller, as a head coach, and things of that nature. So there's a comfort level, there's a familiarity level, and it's young play caller, which is what the NFL is doing. So the Texans are finally doing something that the NFL is doing. Like, there was a couple of years here where they weren't doing what the rest of the NFL was doing when it was being successful.
I just don't love that they don't have anyone with a lot of offensive experience on the staff right now. Like, Gerard Johnson's also going to be the quarterback coach. Like, he's never really been around, that many different offenses and that many young quarterbacks that we're talking about here at the NFL level. Like, this to me reminds me a lot of what Robert Saleh did with the Jets, and it's a very similar spot. Saleh comes over as the DC from the San Francisco 49ers, and he hires the Niners passing game coordinator. At the time, it was Mike LaFleur to be his OC. The guy was out of a job in 2 years because he just wasn't that good. He was a good play caller, but he was not great at actually coaching up talent. Like, Slowik seems like a bright guy. I hope it works out better here in Houston than it did in New York for LaFleur. And I think a big issue the Jets had was just a lack of offensive experience helping their second overall pick quarterback, Zach Wilson, develop. So hopefully, one, the Texans pick a better quarterback at number 2. That will help.
Yeah.
And then, really, I think adding just some more experience to this staff is something Demeco still should look to do.
Jake, you've been on this since the hire was made, and I agree with you 100%. There was some hope that it would be one of the coordinators, whether it was offensive or defensive or maybe special teams, although I'm thrilled that Frank Ross is sticking around because he's done a tremendous job with that unit. But there was some hope that, there'd be somebody with previous head coaching experience on this staff, and you don't have that. And you've got a guy who's been an offensive coordinator for 0 years as the offensive coordinator. You have a guy who's been a defensive coordinator for 2 years, but they were 2 horrible years in Miami as your defensive coordinator. Like, forget head coaching experience. You don't have a lot of coordinating experience on your team. There's still some hires that he can make. The Texans have more resources. There's more money for Demeco Ryans to spend. He can bring somebody in. Doesn't have to be a coordinator. Doesn't have to be a position coach. It can just be a special assistant to the head coach. It could be a quality control type of job. There's a way to bring in somebody with head coaching experience to be on the sideline. We know Demeco has dudes he can call on the phone during the week, but to me, I'd rather have somebody on the sideline that's there on game day who's been there, done that as a head coach in this league. Not going to happen with the coordinator. Hopefully it will happen with somebody somewhere on that staff.
Got some position coach opportunities if you want to have somebody that's like, position coach, assistant head coach, something like that, someone with a ton of experience. So you can fill a few of those out. And Aaron Wilson's reporting that the offensive line coach they're targeting is the Colts offensive line coach. That guy's been coaching for 30-plus years, not all of it in the NFL, but he's been coaching a very, very long time, and it's worked his way up to the NFL level. And prior to this year, the Colts offensive line was one that was well thought of and highly touted. So that's an interesting hire in Chris Strasser is that guy's name. So there's still opportunities to add guys. I mean, the staff's not done being built, but the key roles certainly are filled with young guys, and that is something to monitor. If there's going to be some age, if there's going to be some, and Demeco Ryans said it himself, if there's going to be some old guys on this staff, because that's what he wanted. That's what he said at his introductory press conference. He wants a diverse staff from an age standpoint, guys with a lot of experience, guys without a lot of experience. So there's some opportunities still to have some of those a lot of experienced guys on the staff.
Instead, he hired Ugly Bobby, according to Cody Stoops.
That's not sticking. We're not doing that.
Ugly Bobby.